all of the things that are unspoken that come between us and come between our connectivity, these conversations expose those things and cleans those things out so that there is nothing in the way of us drawing closer together. Mm-hmm. You know, there is no dirt under the rug. There is no white elephant sitting in the corner. Like, there isn't anything hidden. It's the preventative medication to waking up 25 years into a marriage and wondering who is this person laying next to you.
Yeah.
Everyone, welcome
Hello.
to Marriage Matters.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Tanya Coleman, and I am joined by my very handsome
husband, tech support, and
legend.
That's
Yes, the
right.
husband, dad, tech support, and the legend. And your name is?
Glenneth Coleman Jr.
Yeah, you look like you're being arrested, Glenneth Coleman Jr. All right, so this is us. We are the Colemans. Like I said, I'm Tanya, he's Glenn, and we want to welcome you to Marriage Matters. If this is your first time joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so glad to have you here. We hope that you find value and fun in the content. Our goal is to share with you tips and tricks
and tools. The 3 T's.
Yes, to help your marriage grow and thrive. So, how are you today, Glenneth?
Ooh, it was a good day.
Good day?
Know, it's I like this time of year. The weather, well, I don't know if the weather's starting to change, right. But I like this time of year because I like this time of year. Mm-hmm. But then I don't like this time of year because I don't like this time of year.
Okay. You care to explain? Because I'm confused.
No, I like the idea of like Thanksgiving and Christmas and family. I like all of that. I like being around family. I love the closeness. I love the tradition, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But then I just don't like all of the, I guess, like, you know, being in the stores and people, you know, just fighting and cutting in line and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, well, I guess closer to Christmas, people get nicer. Sometimes. Anyhow.
Yeah,
so.
but I like the season. I love hearing Christmas music when I walk in the stores. And
not too early for you?
No, I'm one of those people where Christmas music doesn't bother me. I sing it all year round.
Right.
I love Christmas music.
I'm not one of those. You forget about Thanksgiving. No, I don't. I don't forget about Thanksgiving. It's all encompassing.
I don't mind even the Christmas decorations as long as not our house. Because I like to put that off as long as possible.
Well, tell the truth. Why don't? Well, we have our traditions. So putting up our tree the day after Thanksgiving.
Like that right there. I love that. Yeah. That's a fun day. I love that. Mm-hmm. You know, we're all in here. We're usually in our pajamas. We're listening to Christmas music. We're eating freshly baked cookies, drinking hot chocolate and eggnog. And just us and the girls just having a good old time. Doing our thing,
yeah. So,
I like that. That's the aspect of the holidays I like.
Yeah, absolutely. So well, cool. So we're going to jump into our topic today. So reading, or I don't know if I just was on the website or got an email, but I came across this article from Exo Marriage. I want to make sure to acknowledge that. And the article basically is talking about 5 ways that you can upgrade the communication in your marriage. Okay. And it was a really great article. A lot of things that we talk about often. But I thought that maybe we can use some of these tools that they're offering in our check-in. So again, we're in November. It's the end of the year. This is when most people are thinking about, what I want to do next year is the fourth quarter. So if you're looking at business, what do I need to do to close out my business, close out the year and the business the way that I want to? What do I want to look forward to and project, for next year? What are some goals? What are my personal goals and all of these things? Well, what about our marriages, right? Are we doing those check-ins in our marriage? And if so, why not do it at the end of the year? Do one at the end of the year, right? This is something that you and we started way, way early on in our marriage. And so doing these check-ins is familiar to us, but I want to encourage other couples and kind of model for other couples how they can do those check-ins if this is something that they don't normally do, right? Okay, so I'm going to use some of what was shared in the article as a guide for our conversation or for this discussion today. So the first thing, though, is remember here, if you've been around here for any point in time, you know that Glenn and I are big on communication, right? And we have our 4 steps to healthy communication, right? And it's communicating openly, honestly, about everything all the time. Those are the 4 steps to healthy communication. Those are the things that help to break down barriers, create vulnerability, right? And the vulnerability is going to create a greater level of intimacy in the marriage, right? We agree?
Yeah. Yes. And this is kind of, this just popped into my head. Is there a such thing in marriage? Is there a such thing as too vulnerable?
What do you mean?
I'm just saying.
I guess in my mind, there isn't, because in my mind, this is should be the safest relationship that I have next to God.
Yeah, I was just curious to your thoughts on it. I agree with that. I often joke with you about, I'll be like, some stuff I don't know if I can share this with Tanya. This may freak her out if I'm thinking this.
Yeah, I don't know what this man be got going on in his mind when he says things like this. But no, I'm gonna leave it there.
But yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think there's no thing that you could share. I think that's out of bounds in your relationship. So,
sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, I just preface what we're talking about with what we're talking about with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this conversation, when we do these check-ins, so when we started doing these check-ins at the beginning of our marriage, we set some ground rules, right? And those ground rules were that we were going to give each other the liberty and the freedom to say whatever it is that we needed to say, and the other person not get upset. Right? Agree to not get upset. Not that you can't have feelings about it, but when we say get upset, mean like act out in anger. So you can have feelings about it. You absolutely have the right to your feelings about it. But I think in the beginning, before we had all of the understanding that we have now, it's just like, okay, don't get mad when I say it because I'm being honest with you. Well, now we have more understanding and clarity and growth within ourselves and our marriage to understand that, yes, if you're upset about it, it doesn't sit well with you, you have the right to those feelings, but you first need to figure out why you're upset about it within yourself and then communicate that, to me. So it's a process. So I say all that to say this, that sometimes in these conversations, some of what your spouse can say to you can be triggering, correct?
Yeah.
It doesn't always feel good, because we're not talking about, oh, you're so handsome, you're so beautiful, oh, you're so thoughtful. No, I want to know the things that I need to correct, that I need to do better.
Yeah. And I'll say, a lot of people say that all the time. It's like, we want better communication. It's like, do you?
Do you really?
Do you? Because with that, I think what people want is I want you to tell me what I want to hear from you.
I just had a flashback. Was it Jack Nicholson in that movie?
You can't handle the truth?
Yes. When
I want the truth.
I want the truth. And he says,
you can't handle the truth. Yeah.
Well, we need to be able to handle the truth.
And that is something that I had to learn, is that if we're going to be in this, if we're going to operate at this level, number one, for me, the first thing that I had to really not crush, but I had to really get over me. I had to get over my ego. My ego had to really take a back seat, because there's some times when you've communicated things to me that when, again, especially when I thought I was, doing really well in an area, and you're like, oh, actually, you could be doing this better, or I thought one thing, but you thought a whole nother thing.
Sure.
And one thing that really helped me, and I hope I'm not taking you too far off your notes here, but for me, one thing that helped me, I've heard you say this so many times, is that you feel how you feel.
Sure.
And people say, well, is that feeling right or wrong? Well, I'm not going to quantify that, but that's how you feel.
Right. Right.
Now, what's driving that? You talked about that before. What the why behind why you feel that way? That could be a lot of different things. That we get into. We talk about how we see the world through our rose-colored glasses, or whatever that color is for us. So the way you feel about a thing is colored by your experiences, your past, all of that stuff. But put all of that aside. That's the way you feel.
Right.
And so if I'm asking you to be open, honest about everything all the time, I have to be prepared that sometimes when you're being honest about something, it could be something that maybe I'm not doing as well as I thought.
Correct.
Or something, you got what I'm saying? So you have to, but at the same time, I like it, and I've grown to like it, because it's not, to me, it's better than not knowing that and thinking I'm doing so well. And then after, however many years, after all this time, I thought I was doing well in this area, and you say, well, no, actually not. So at least when you tell me the truth, I now can either figure out from you what I need to do. I need to go do the research on my own. Maybe I need to go to therapy, or maybe I need to go get help so I can be better in that area.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at that. And still to this day, I'm talking a good talk on this podcast, but still to this day, there are some times where you communicate some things to me, and I'm like, whew, okay, this chick right here just done crushed all my little, well, thank you for making my beautiful day sad now. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you being so open and honest with me. I love the way you're so open and honest. No, I'm kidding. But I have to be prepared for that. But like I said, I would rather, I'm to the point now in my life, let's be authentic.
Yeah,
if I'm not doing it right, or if I'm not living up to your expectations, let me know. And so now I have a choice. I can either grow in that area for you, or I can remain the same. Now, the other side of that is when you make those expectations known, that's the risk you take.
Sure.
And that's part of vulnerability.
That's vulnerability. It's risky.
I'm telling you this. And so I could choose to say, well, I can't do that. So now we have to. And
then I have to choose, okay, if you're not going to do that, what am I going to do with the fact that you're not going to do that?
So then we have to have that conversation. Right. So yeah, the wheels on the bus go round and round. So
it's real, it's real. And so when your spouse says something to you that triggers you for whatever reason, it's going to be really important that you investigate their thoughts, their feelings on that, right? So that you can get really clear and as to what the expectation is or what they're saying. So, we've said this a number of times, that when you hear something that you don't quite understand, or in this case, it's triggering for you, then get more clarification. So what I hear you saying is that you don't like when I have 10 decorative pillows to put on the bed. I'm using something light, okay? You don't like when I have 10 decorative pillows to put on the bed, Right. And his response may be, no, I don't like it. I think that it's too much work. I think that it's unnecessary, whatever. But get clear on what it is that they're saying. I didn't appreciate when your cousin was disrespectful to me at the barbecue and you didn't stand up for me. Right. I didn't appreciate that. Okay. So what I hear you saying is that you didn't appreciate my cousin being disrespectful to you. No, what I'm saying is I didn't appreciate the fact that you didn't stand up to me. I mean, stand up for me.
And I think that's a good example, because here, a lot of times I think in those situations, like I know, like for me and my siblings, we are we pick at each other a lot. And I mean, that's just how we always have been. And even though we don't see each other every day, but when we get together, it's, we gonna pick at each other. We're gonna tell embarrassing stories. We're gonna do all those things. And for you, if you're not that type of person that vibes with that, then you could be perceiving that as disrespectful.
Right.
And we just playing. We just, we playing the dozens. We snapping on each other. We roasting each other, right?
Let you know that you're a part of the family.
Yeah. So again, me getting that clarifying statement is like, okay, wait, so you're what you're saying is when they said that you felt disrespectful. So I can't just say. The tendency is, or for me, the old me probably would have been like, "Oh, girl, they just playing,
right?
They just playing. They wasn't really.
You can't feel like that.
Yeah, don't. What I'm basically telling is, don't feel that way because that's not how they meant it,
right?
And I always say this: unfortunately, in relationships, intention always doesn't win out because I intentionally didn't mean to hurt you,
right?
My good friend Kev on stage says this all the time. He says, if I hit you with my car and break your leg, I could get on and be like, oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you with my car and break your leg. But the fact is your leg is broken.
My legs are broken.
So in that situation, even though that way may not have been my relative's intention, that's what happened.
Right.
So when you shared that with me, I can't just set aside. I can't just run over that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We have to have that conversation, and then I have to do something with that. And I may have to have that conversation with whoever that relative is. Hey, just don't. And again, that's not like, well, man, I don't know why she feel this way, but
right.
It's going, look, I would appreciate it if you wouldn't talk to my wife that way. So
now you made your spouse out to be the crazy one.
Right. Yeah. So, and I know I may be pulling you.
You're good.
But so what was the point you were making?
He just went way down.
I'm sorry, my bad. It's all
the
good.
Mulberry patch.
I'm bringing myself back.
When you're doing the check-ins and something is said that triggers you, make sure that in that moment you feel triggered, that you are also clear on what your spouse is saying. So ask clarifying questions. And so I use the example. What I hear you saying is.
Yeah. So don't allow, especially. We have to be that for each other.
Correct.
And I've learned that when she's really giving me or being vulnerable and expressing her feelings to me, that may not be the time to then express back my feelings. You know what I'm saying?
That's good. Give space.
So I have to hold space. I have to hold space for her. And that's a relationship. That's what being there for each other looks like. That's what emotional support looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the second thing is to say to your spouse what you need or what you need to feel, right? And so this one was new to me. I was like, I never really thought about expressing what I need to feel. So before we express what we need to feel, assess yourself. Do you need to feel respected? Do you need to feel wanted? Do you need to feel desired? Do you need to feel pursued or validated? Sometimes, that one pursue stuck out to me because I hear so often from women that they don't feel desired or that their spouse doesn't pursue them anymore. You don't have an issue with that. You stay in pursuit. But if that is something that you are not experiencing from your spouse, being able to communicate in those check-ins what it is that you need from them, or what it is that you need to feel. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that is something that I don't want to make this blanket, what do they call it? Generalize for all men. But I do know a lot of times I think this is one that we as men struggle with because we feel that we don't need anything. You know, and
you have said that 100 and 1,000 times.
What?
I don't need nothing. You said it in the past.
I have, but I think I was talking physical things.
Okay.
Because when it comes to like gifts and stuff, there's very specific things that, I like.
No. But I think even in some contexts where I may have been asking, what do you need from me? In moments, not recent, but I'm just saying in years past, you have said, I don't need anything. I'm good.
Okay. Because I know, I've expressed to you some areas, where I say I need these things.
Right. That's been more recent.
And even especially when it comes to being, respected, is a given, not a given, but that's one. But also I think for a lot of men, being pursued or being desired, I think is one that I think a lot of men want, but are not brave enough or willing to say it out loud.
Vulnerable.
You are not vulnerable enough to say that out loud and wanting to be desired. Like, we talk about this all the time, where, with, you initiating sex. That's one, I'm like, if I would like it if you would initiate more, and not, I'm always, the one who, initiates. So that telling you, I need this. And I'll say men and women, both, don't just, when your spouse says those things, especially when they say, I need this from you, take that to heart.
Right.
Because here's one thing that I know a lot of times about a need. And I know, people say, well, that's not a, you don't need that. You don't need that to live. Well, emotional needs are I'm not gonna say they're just as important. I'll say that as your physical needs. But here's the thing about needs. When a person says, I need, and I'm just going, I'm not going, you hear what I'm saying. But when a person says, I need something, here's the thing about needs. They're going to get met.
Yeah.
So either if that's something that they need emotionally from you, either that you're going to meet it or they're going to get that need met, And so for me, when my spouse is saying that I need this is what I need from you, I take that seriously.
And so that means when your spouse says to you what they need, that you have to do the work within yourself to be able to give them that thing that they need, because obviously it isn't coming automatically to you. It isn't something that you've been intentional about, because if you had, then they wouldn't be making the request.
Yeah.
So it's important to do your work to figure out, why haven't I been doing this? Maybe I just wasn't aware, didn't know. Or is there something getting in the way? So you mentioned the sex thing and me. She
said sex thing, not sexting.
Things.
So like you said sexting.
Sorry. That me initiating more. And so in my process of, learning to do that more and figuring out why I wasn't, well, it goes back to some things around, image and being the good girl and things that were communicated in
fast.
All of
don't
that.
Be a fast tail girl.
All of that, right? And it's just like, okay, forget the fact that I've been married for, umpteen years, and so working through that, it's important to do that self-assessment. And remember, we're always self-assessing, right? Not overthinking. There's a difference, right? But I need to understand my whys, right? And so when I understand my whys, like, oh, I can work on that. I can talk to my therapist, my counselor about that. I can talk to my girlfriend who's wise about that and work through it. So who's a safe place and work through that. So
and I'll just kind of just reiterate that about when your spouse tells you that you may have to make some, or you probably will have to make some adjustments. Because like you said, obviously they're saying that they need that from you. It's something that you're not giving them. And so it may be out of like the initiating, that may be outside of your wheelhouse, but you have to figure that out. How can I, do that? And to the person who's asking for the need, it's important for you to acknowledge, like, hey, man, I in your own way, but I see you trying, and acknowledge that fact. There's a scene. One of my favorite movies is Major Payne. Love that movie. But she gives him the book. I can't remember what the name of the book is, but he's a
drill sergeant,
retired major from the U.S. Army. So he's very hardcore. He's been around war all his life and turning men into soldiers. And so now he's put in charge of these little kids, and he's trying to parent these kids the way he would parent the way he would command soldiers. And I can't remember.
She was like the
Hillary. That's what's her real name?
Psychiatrist.
She was a school counselor.
Anyway,
Hillary from The Fresh Prince. I can't remember her real name. She played that, and she gave him this book. And I remember him reading the book, and he's scratching his head with this big old knife, but he was like, I will attend to his needs, but he was making an effort to say, even when he was attending to the needs, he still got it wrong a little bit, but at least he was trying. So she had to acknowledge the fact that, hey, I see you. Thank you for trying, but let's maybe try this, And so, acknowledging it, but for the person that the other person is making the adjustments to provide or give them the needs that they're asking for.
So I think that is really important. That was a new one for me, is to say, I need to feel this, or I need whatever. It's in the way that they put it, I need to feel, just kind of like, oh, wait, I don't know if I've done that, how are you experiencing?
Can I say one more thing about the other thing, huh? So one great tool, this is a tool, tips, tricks, and tools, right? This is a tool. There's an app called the Love Nudge app.
Yes, we've used that a lot.
It's a way to help you to remember. It gives you a little alert. Or just put it on your calendar or something, because if you're not used to doing something, you're not going to do it. It's going to take you a while so you're going to have to put things in place, practical things in place to help you remember to do the things. Oh,
you done stepped on somebody's toes. You know how many times I've heard people say, especially women, well, he shouldn't have to set a reminder on his phone to call me or text me from work something nice.
I always ask.
Or remember to tell me whatever. He should just be doing it. But if that is not who he has been at his core, or who he's or what he's practiced, and he's learning something new, let that man put a reminder on his phone. I always
ask them, do you want the flowers or don't you?
Right. Let that reminder pop up every other Tuesday night to bring you some flowers.
Here's the deal. If that is an issue for you, then maybe the issue is deeper than the flowers.
Correct. Correct.
All right, you can move on.
Okay. So here's another question. I thought this was a great one. And we talk about this all the time, about how sometimes we can deny what our spouse is telling us, right? About ourselves, and we always say this, that, this is their experience of you, or your children. Sometimes they will, say some things, but this is their experience of you. But have you ever thought to ask, how are you experiencing me?
No, I have not. But that is a great question.
It is a great question. It requires so much openness, maturity, vulnerability, you know?
Here's the deal. I don't know if you ever realized this.
What?
You've never seen yourself.
You've never seen yourself.
You've seen a reflection of yourself.
Correct.
But you've never actually seen yourself.
Correct.
And so a lot of times I think we don't realize how we are because we've never truly seen ourselves. We've never truly experienced us outside of us. And so you're right. This requires a lot of maturity. And I don't know if I should say, wait until you're mature enough to ask this question, because maybe you need to ask this question to mature. But it's definitely a question that you need to ask your spouse. How are you experiencing me? Because if anyone can give you insight into a person, it's their spouse. And a lot of times that's what I've seen leaders and I see the way their spouse reacts to them. And I'm like, yeah, he or she, Because if that's the way your spouses react, and I'm not talking about, it's just the little things that their spouse does. And I'm like, yeah, you talk a good game, but you really not the person because there's nothing more frustrating for a spouse for you to present one way to everybody
your
else.
Family as a whole, your children.
So this is a good, and so if anybody knows the true you and can give you insight into who you really are and what you really need to improve on, it's your spouse.
They see it all. They see the good, they see the bad, they see the ugly, they see the intention, they see the, like you said, I talk a good game on this podcast, but it's like they see when you're talking a good game when you're on the phone or when you're in meetings or certain settings, and then you're a completely different person with them, with the kids at home. So this is a really great question when you are really ready to grow.
And I'll say this to the person. So if you're asking me, how are you experiencing me? This is not the time for me to take cheap shots.
Correct.
I want to be honest with you. And even if it's not something that your spouse may like, it still can come from a place of love. I'm telling you this. And so sometimes, if you tell me I'm experiencing you this way, well, maybe I want to be experienced that way. And if that's the case, well, then I'm cool with that. But if you're telling me I'm experiencing you this way and that's not how I want to be perceived, now I say, okay, now I got to figure out how to get from A to B, right?
Correct.
Go from how I'm being experienced now to how I want to be experienced. Because that's another travesty, is that if I think I'm showing up this way for my spouse and I'm not, and she's experiencing me this way, again, it goes back to what I think I'm killing the game, and it's like, nah, you're not. So yeah.
Yeah. One of the examples that they used in the article was the cell phone. So the question, was asked, how are you experiencing me? And the spouse responded, aloof and distracted. You're always in your phone. And so the person had to work on not becoming offended and say, you know what, not my spouse, I need to set boundaries around my cell phone and engaging in technology outside of what I need to do for work. But, I need to set those boundaries for myself so that I can be more attentive and intentional with my spouse and my children. So I thought that was a great example that they use. It's just like, I'm experiencing you aloof and distracted.
I ain't always on my phone. That's usually the response. Right.
Well, you be on your phone too.
You be on your phone too. Yeah. So, but again, you asked, so I'm telling you, and I know that's one that we probably all need to work on.
Absolutely.
And I've been doing that more, is trying to put my phone, like when I'm sitting down, I put it face down just as a reminder. And if you would go into your, in your iCloud account, there's that screen time notification. Now, I know from on mine, it tells me like on Sundays, it says, these are many hours you spent
last week
on your phone. You're like, dang.
Right.
Right.
What could I have gotten done?
Yeah. So that is something, we all need to work on. But like you said, that's how you're experiencing me. So it's what can I do to make those adjustments, and for me, like, I don't know, like a person, like for me, you may say that you experience me as, maybe as uncommunicative. I don't know.
Uncommunicative?
Yeah, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. But I would say, well, I don't talk. A lot of people think I talk all the time, but it's like, I don't. When I'm just, and I always find it funny that Tanya and I, we could go, when we're riding together, we could go hours without saying anything. And I think, hope she don't embarrass me on this podcast, but I think she's okay with that. But I do know she likes to talk. So that's something that I had to adjust in, So like when we're talking in the bed at night, I have to be engaged and I can't just be distracted by the TV or whatever.
The Ray in the background.
Ray. Oh, everybody loves Raymond?
Yeah,
Oh,
Ray Burrow.
I like that show. But anyway, so yeah, how are you experiencing me? That's a good question to ask.
And so this is a kind of a flip on one that we asked earlier. But it's, what do you need from me? And so there is definitely value sharing your answer to that question, but also the value and the power of asking your spouse, what do you need from me? And I think that's one we probably have done pretty often, is what do you need? It's, for me, it is, I am checking in to say, okay, I may be doing pretty okay in these areas. You shared with me some areas that you feel like I may need to work on. But now I really want to be specific and hear from you. What do you need from me? Yeah.
So that's I think that's good, asking both of those. So you said the first one was, I need you too.
Right.
Then it's, what do you need from me? That's good. Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. You're in deep concentrated thought.
I was just reading your notes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what is the goal for the check-in? And I know we left this as the last one. This one was left as the last one. Maybe it should be the first one. But I think closing out with this, kind of, it's the bookend, the other end of the book, as a reminder of why we do the check-in. So are we checking in for the purpose of growth? Are we checking in for the purpose of, I just want to know what you really think about me? Or are we checking in for connectivity?
Yeah. I think, it could be perceived as, this is a time to get things off my chest.
Oh, yeah.
To give you a piece of my mind, or to tell you what I'm thinking, which that may be the case. But I like what you said. It's like the end goal of this is connectivity.
Yeah.
And when you approach it that way, or when you go in with that mindset, because like I said, all of this that we're talking about can be hard. I mean, to hear someone, if I'm asking you how you experiencing me and you're telling me something that I don't want to hear, that can be hard. But at the end of the day, vulnerability, true vulnerability, always brings intimacy and connectivity.
Yes, absolutely.
And even though when you go into these check-ins with that in mind, that at the end of this, we're going to be closer, we're going to be better, then it makes it easier to go through the dog, man, golly,
Right.
It makes it easier to go through that part, because I know on the other side, and I will honestly say, I've just witnessed us, after those hard conversations, it's like those, it always brings us closer. Always. It doesn't feel like it in the moment.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it, but because that's what true intimacy is really exposing the deep hidden places when you let the people that you let into those places are always going to be there's always going to be a closeness and a connectiveness with those people. And I think that's why, we talk about even, like with emotional affairs, I've heard people say that's worse than, sleeping with than the physical. Yeah. Because those places should only be reserved for. It's like, so for some people, it's like you're letting that other person into a place you've never let me into.
Right.
So how
and that's all I've wanted
that's all I've wanted
for you to let me in.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. So yeah, I think keeping the goal, keeping the target in mind of this is going to bring us closer.
Yeah, you were talking about how hard these conversations can be, but the fruit is that these conversations get all of the things that are unspoken that come between us and come between our connectivity. These conversations expose those things and cleans those things out so that there is nothing in the way of us drawing closer together. There is no dirt under the rug. There is no white elephant sitting in the corner. Like there isn't anything hidden. It's the preventative medication to waking up 25 years into a marriage and wondering who is this person laying next to you.
Yeah.
Your kids are gone out of the house and now we don't know where we belong or who we are or if we even want this anymore. Yeah. And, I know life circumstances and things happen, but these are the types of conversations that we need to have to help us to stay well and stay healthy. Yeah. In our marriage. Nothing is perfect, but I don't know. I've never met a couple who got married with getting divorced or separated.
That's the end goal.
Yeah. Haven't met one.
And I'll say this too, if you're doing these check-ins and you're asking these questions and you're sharing these thoughts, if it is creating distance in your relationship, then something's off. So what you need to do is go to wholelifecoachingandcounseling.com and book a free 30-minute consultation.
No, 15
minutes. I'm sorry.
We got 15 minutes to figure out if we want to set an appointment.
I'm sorry. 15 minutes. No, shameless plug. But no, seriously though, if it's creating distance, then you're not doing something right or something's off somewhere and you need to get help and maybe get someone to help you walk through this process and understand what's going on in your relationship. Because that the end goal of this should be is intimacy, vulnerability, connectivity, vulnerability. No. Vulnerability, intimacy, and connectivity, or VIC.
Okay.
It's another, see what I did there?
Acronym, I see.
Yeah. So you should have Vic in your relationship. Yeah. No, Vic is not another dude. Vic is vulnerability, intimacy, and connectivity.
Good job, babe. Good job.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So yes, do those check-ins. It is November. It is time, the end of the year. Let's do our check-ins with our spouse. Let's prepare for the next year. How are we moving? How are we growing? What are we doing different? What are we keeping in the game? What are we dismissing from the game? What are we employing? How are we training? How are we building up? Not just for next year, but for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So with that, this is
Glenn
and Tanya Coleman reminding you that your marriage matters. We'll see you next week. Bye.